Another, good example of the power of video games was in the 2020 election. AOC, so Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she streamed the video game Among Us, which was very popular during the pandemic, if you remember. And she was actually able to galvanize, hundreds of thousands of youth to vote. So she was able to use a video game to drive civic engagement. And I think that that's something, especially now, for example, with the imminent election, is something for people to think about. There's a lot of opportunity there as well.
Hello and welcome to Better Societies, where we explore how societal theories and disruptive technologies are used to create utopic or dystopic outcomes impacting global powers and our daily lives. In this presentation, we're speaking with Karla Reyes, founder of Anima Interactive, to understand how games can create exponential social impact. Karla Reyes is the founder and studio director at Anima Interactive, a Forbes 30 Under 30 fellow and a World Economic Forum global shaper, with diverse experience in the media and gaming industries. She is dedicated to creating socially conscious, interactive media with a positive cultural impact. She's also involved in environmental and social impact initiatives in the entertainment sector. Karla is a driving force at Coven, the first global games industry accelerator, where she has raised substantial funding, established crucial partnerships, and co-created programs that promote diversity and inclusion in the gaming world. A couple key points I want you to keep in mind is that Karla Reyes is most known for pioneering the use of games for social impact. She's helped create award-winning games that address critical social issues and being a leading advocate for diversity and inclusion in the gaming industry. In this presentation, we'll explore how games can be a force for social good, led by Karla Reyes. We'll discover how gaming can address complex societal issues, foster empathy, and drive positive change. Karla will share her experiences leveraging games for social impact and highlight the broader potential of gaming for creating a fairer world. We'll emphasize the integration of social impact models within gaming and the significant impact that partnerships between gaming companies and NGOs or corporations can yield. The discussion will spotlight how such collaborations enhance the reach and relevance of social initiatives within gaming experiences. Attendees will learn practical strategies to create impactful alliances and how these partnerships can inspire positive behavioral changes and amplify social messaging. By the end, participants will grasp the powerful synergy between social impact, gaming, and strategic partnerships. And armed with these insights, they'll gain a roadmap to infuse social impact into gaming models and forge meaningful collaborations, aiming to be catalysts for meaningful societal change. Karla Reyes, welcome to Better Societies.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
So first off, in your own words, can you tell us a little more in detail about yourself and what you're currently working on?
Sure. Well, you illustrated the bio, so I really appreciate that. But so that I don't sound redundant, yeah, I'm a video game developer and designer by trade, and I also just appreciate having a humanitarian lens on things. So a lot of my work is dedicated to exploring different social justice issues in the world and seeing the ways in which interactive entertainment, being the largest entertainment form in the world, can be utilized to catalyze real world positive change. I think it's been such a delight because I try to combine all of my passions and interests through my work, and those include academia and research, and so that plays a role in a lot of the work that I do, and we'll dig into that later. But also just the combination of art and technology, and art as a tool for activism is a tale as old as time. But I think increasingly in this rapidly evolving universe and all of the innovation and technological change that's happening, we have just an increasing toolkit that we can use, and I'm very excited about exploring those, and that kind of weaves into a lot of the work that we're doing at Anima Interactive.
Beautiful. And then what interested you about building better societies to begin with?
Yeah, I think it has to do with my perspective on the world. So you know that we both grew up in New York City in a very multicultural place where you just get exposed to a vast range of cultures and classes, and that really shaped my perspective on the world. And acknowledging the advantages and disadvantages that I had as an individual. And um, I'm mindful that I have a lot of privilege. You know, I'm the child of immigrants from Guatemala and the Philippines, which are developing countries, and traveling to those countries and seeing the poverty and injustices that exist, and then seeing how that translated to systemic injustices in the US, for example, right? It's a lot of these issues are ones that surrounded me on a day-to-day basis, and ones that I therefore wanted to be able to support if I could.
Awesome. And then can you tell us a little bit about how your work can benefit entrepreneurs, investors, researchers, activists, and policymakers who want to help create better societies?
Yeah, well, I'll show some of the data, you know, but I think with video games and interactive media as the largest media form in the world right now, there is vast potential to utilize this technology, this art form, to shift hearts and minds and to provoke real world change. It's not even just about raising awareness, but the beauty of interactive media is that I personally believe it's the most immersive form of art, and it has the most potential to foster empathy, because you literally step into the shoes of somebody or something, and you can experience what that feels like viscerally. And so I think it triggers something psychologically that's unparalleled to other psychological triggers that might occur through other more passive forms of media or entertainment.
Yeah, I totally agree, right? It's playing off all of our senses, and we are very sensory beings.
Yes, indeed.
Why is creating social impact through games so important for you and for creating better societies as a whole?
Yeah, I think I mean there's just you know, the world is on fire right now, right? I think that's just transparently what's happening. There's no denying that. And so that said, I don't think that we should be focused on the doom and gloom and dystopia. I know I heard you mention it in the introduction, right? That, and maybe some people are speaking to that perspective, but I'm personally an optimist, and I really try to see the ways in which we can kind of boots on the ground make a change, rather than just scream and shout about what's going on in the world, right? It's you know, I think there are different forms of activism, but I've personally always been somebody who really wants to just experientially experiment, and try to see if you know, we can move the needle, if we can make an impact, even if it's nominal, because I think that starting point is what can then create a domino effect later, right? It's I'm very grassroots oriented, and I'll explain some of the work that we've been doing that is very grassroots oriented, but I'm starting to see that scale, and that's really electrifying, and it's
Mm,
exciting, and it's what motivates me and my team to continue to build off of the momentum that we have so far.
amazing. Okay, so please go ahead and share your screen. Let's dive in
Sure.
and just
Yeah, so oh, go
go
ahead,
ahead.
sorry. No, I was just gonna say, yeah, I'll share just a quick overview on the studio and some of the projects, and then I can kind of dive into one particular project that includes some case studies and showcases of specific interactive media experiences and games that highlight the type of work that we're doing.
Awesome. And yeah, just to comment on what you were saying earlier, I think we are at a point where we've never had as much potential with technology and scale to make these impactful experiences. So it is the time both for the positive and for the negative, but I'm excited to see how we move into the positive.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, are you seeing this okay? Just making
Yes.
sure. Okay, great. All right. So, as already alluded to, Anima Interactive is a socially conscious games and immersive media studio that blends art and technology to craft experiences that leave a lasting positive impact. And when we say we're socially conscious, what we mean is that we are thinking critically on a daily basis about issues and injustices in the world and exploring the ways in which we can reach wider audiences and inform them about it, right? I think one of the biggest things to note here is that we don't want to be didactic. And while we are educating, we don't want it to be pedagogical, right? It's entertainment first. It's really, there are many analogies that go around, but we often say things like putting the spinach in the brownies, and really being
Yeah.
able to delightfully, surprise audiences with the ways in which they learn about these issues. And it's we're drawing a lot from narrative and culture change movements that exist in film and TV. For example, they're a little more mature and ahead of the game as far as developing content like this, but I think there's like vast untapped potential within video games, and just because it's a more nascent industry overall, but also, and I'll speak to it a little bit later, it could also be a result of the lack of diversity, in on the game developer side, and just being able to share new perspectives will really change the types of narratives that exist in the content. And I'm personally very excited about the way and the direction that that's heading in.
Awesome.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, gaming is the largest form of entertainment. So it's literally bigger than film, TV, and music combined, right? So this is really powerful, and it's
Wow.
only getting bigger. And I think it has an 8.7% annual growth rate. We're just going to see this trajectory exponentially grow. And so this is very exciting. It's also daunting, right? It means there's a lot of responsibility for people that are creating games. And I think that's why we try to position ourselves as taking ownership of that responsibility and making sure that there are narratives, that there is content that is shifting society toward good, right? Toward better.
Yeah, I didn't realize
Um,
it was so big and growing so quickly. I mean, that is serious,
yeah,
serious
I know
numbers.
when people see those market slides, I take it for granted because I'm in it, but for people outside of the games industry, they often overlook it, and it could also be a generational thing, right? I think a lot of Gen Z, and I don't even know what the generations below that are anymore, to be honest, but they're really thinking about games first. That's how they're consuming content now. So it's just fascinating, and we need to catch up. Right. So the industry has unfortunately often been associated with toxicity and homogeneity. Perhaps you've seen or heard about some of the headlines. And it's really interesting because there's such a diverse audience for games, as we just discussed, right? However, the representation within the game development community is still not on par. And so a lot of the work that I've been doing, as you mentioned, in the industry overall is committing to increasing representation at all levels within the industry, both behind and on screen. Because as I've experienced throughout different game development teams, there's so much magic that happens when there's diversity of thought and experience. And it's not just strict demographic data, right? It doesn't mean only getting more women in the room. It's really having this holistic approach to diversity and inclusion. And we're really trying to do that within our studio, which I can allude to a little later. But yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity here to move the needle. It's also a really opportune time to harness the power of video games for good. So there's a lot of demand and appetite for it. Just some stats here. For example, 60% of US gamers want companies to take a stance on well-being and health. Over 50% of US gamers want companies to take a stance on social causes. So there's an increasing affinity toward social justice, social impact. People probably discuss this as far as association with brands, right? People feel good when they make a purchase or with for a brand that is associated with some kind of social impact,
Mhm.
and we see that with games as well. And as far as just a few case studies here, uh, it's really exciting. So there is a game called Borderlands 3, and something really cool that they've done is they implemented this feature called Borderlands Science, which was effectively a mini game, a puzzle game. And so players were just playing this kind of match three style puzzle. But in the back end, what they were actually doing was contributing to mapping the human gut microbiome. And they were, connected to a database that McGill University was kind of overseeing. And it's just fascinating. This is a citizen science, right? So I think there's a lot of opportunity here that is just not exploited, not really being explored as much. But I think that, for the game developers, for researchers, for policymakers, anyone that can invest in initiatives like this, it's such a great platform, because you're getting, just average people to contribute to science, which is awesome. Another, good example of the power of video games was in the 2020 election. AOC, so Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she streamed the video game Among Us, which was very popular during the pandemic, if you remember. And she was actually able to galvanize, hundreds of thousands of youth to vote. So she was able to use a video game to drive civic engagement. And I think that that's something, especially now, for example, with the imminent election, is something for people to think about. There's a lot of opportunity there as well. And that's kind of what we're trying to harness, right? We want to harness the power of interactive entertainment to shift hearts and minds and scale this social impact. So we are committed to amplifying new developers to tell new stories and also exploring new technologies. And our work is really rooted in research and real world impact. And we are actually actively collaborating with McGill University and trying to determine ways in which we could potentially explore citizen science initiatives in any of our games. We're also partnering with nonprofits to learn from their work in film and TV and how they've driven narrative and culture change. So as an example, I don't know if you saw the film Roma that came out on Netflix in 2020. Yeah, so it was about an indigenous domestic worker in Mexico. And domestic workers often don't have many labor rights because they're often undocumented immigrants or, of lower social classes. So they're not always able to advocate for their rights. And so actually what Netflix, who produced the film, Alfonso Cuarón, the director, they partnered with a nonprofit called the National Domestic Workers Alliance, and they ran a screening campaign across the U.S. and Mexico for the film. And they brought domestic workers to speak to audiences, after the film about their labor, laws and how the injustices that they faced, and they were actually able to influence policy change through that campaign. So it's a super powerful tool and a testament to the ways in which entertainment and media can really shift policy even, right? So culture is what moves first, and that's kind of the social and cultural impact piece. But then if you really want to move the needle and shift policy, this is potentially a way to do so. And so we're really excited about that possibility and being able to leverage games as that tool as well to drive impact.
I think
We're
it's
also part. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I think it's
No,
really
of course.
interesting from a behavioral psychology perspective that the emotions are so often underutilized, I would say, in policy because it's very logic based. And the thing is, as humans, we don't really make decisions purely on logic. We really do need that emotional side of it as well. And so it's really interesting, right? I'm thinking about for Roma, why is it that was able to break through after years and years of no change? And it's probably because all the people who had watched the film were in that primed emotional state to feel the empathy
Yep.
and the necessary emotions to do something, right? I think
Exactly.
that's beautiful.
Yeah, when what you said just reminded me of an expression that I've used and I've heard over time where it's in order to drive impact, you need to use the head, the heart, and the hands, right? So the head is what drives the logical piece, because we do need data, we do need research, we need to be informed about the issues that are, we want to change, and what our goals are for change, right? What are our impact goals? But then the heart is the emotional piece, right? And how do you actually capture the hearts and of people who are going to have the influence or authority to actually drive any change? And then the hands is actually taking action, right? Actually doing something tangible and concrete and that going back to my boots on the ground kind of analogy, to drive the change. So yeah, it's certainly something that I think more people should explore. And then we're also partnered with a couple of organizations within the broader games industry. There's a charity called Safe in Our World, which is dedicated to mental health in the games industry, which is really big. Because again, in turning the tide on the narrative, I don't know if you saw, but if I go back a couple slides on the toxicity piece, like I think the World Health Organization a few years ago created this gaming disorder, which was an addictive behavior, and but contrarily, also games like Animal Crossing were specifically shown in research from a study by Oxford University to improve mental health. And a lot of games are actually heading in that direction. So I think there's a lot of opportunity, and I think you and I have talked about this, that games are a form of escapism. And as long as, you're immersing in it in a sustainable way, I think it can really have tremendous benefits to psychology and mental health.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then, yeah, the Fair Play Alliance is really committed to fostering safe spaces, especially in multiplayer gaming environments, right? I think that's really important. There's been a lot, again, especially a lot going on right now within the broader games community. And so we really want to be able to support fostering inclusivity and making sure that people who play in multiplayer, online communities feel safe. And it's meant to be fun. It's meant to be engaging, right? You don't want to be harassed while you're, indulging in something that's just meant to be a pastime for you. The other piece is the UN Environment Program. So they run an initiative called the Playing for the Planet Alliance, and their whole MO is to raise awareness about climate change through video games, and they want to reach 1 billion gamers. And as you saw on the slide before, there are over 3 billion gamers, and that's just increasing. So, and they're doing a pretty phenomenal job, because they've managed to form an alliance of several prominent game studios that have massive reach, millions of players around the world. The likes of, Supercell, who, and then King, and all of these different studios that have this scale. And so what they do is annually they run what's called the Green Game Jam, where all of the studios are challenged with implementing what are called green nudges into their games. So they could be modest activations that can tie to real world change, right? So even if it's something as simple as, okay, well, you do something in the game, and then for every action, that studio is going to go off and plant a tree, right? So, but that adds up and that accumulates, and suddenly you have millions of trees planted, and so that is already moving the needle as far as addressing climate change. And then, yeah, just a little bit about our team. So we have a really diverse collective of artists and thinkers, dotted across the globe. We're over 85% people of color, over 60% female and non-binary. So it's almost the inverse of what you see like as an industry standard. And we also have a lot of values-aligned partnerships. So I already talked about Safe in Our World and Fair Play, but at the end of last year, we ran a game jam, which is effectively a hackathon for games. And the call to action was for creators to weave different themes of justice into their games. And our primary partner for this initiative is an organization called Cinereach. So they're a nonprofit media incubator. Historically, they were investing in indie and art house films. So films like Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, if you're familiar, or Sorry to Bother You. But they've pivoted now and are investing in new media, including video games. And they also have these three core pillars of sustainability, justice, and pluralism. So there was a natural alignment in values for us to partner and run this initiative called Just Play, which culminated in a showcase for the projects and an awards ceremony at South by Southwest in Austin last month. And that was really cool because we had, for the jam, we had 100 participants from all over the world create projects that were so unique. And I'll dig into them later because I have a little
Awesome.
presentation that kind of shows an overview. But that was really special because we also managed to get a lot of community partners involved, lots of advocacy groups, and yeah, it just gave me hope for the different a new kind of segment of the industry that's focused on narrative and culture change. And we're starting to build this community, and we're excited about continuing to collaborate with some of the people that were involved in this initiative.
Wow.
And then, yeah, just again, reiterating, we're really focused on trying to create accessible experiences. We're platform agnostic, so we're not just solely focused on like PC, console, or mobile games. We want to explore extended reality as well, right? I think there's a lot of cool technology now that we should see. What are the different ways that we can reach audiences? Everybody is experiencing niche, consumption of media now, and we want to explore it all if we can, right? And also think about the global majority, which is often connoted as like the minorities, but it's actually the global majority, right? Like a lot of demographic groups, ethnicities, emerging markets. So there's high growth geographies and demographics that we see and we're trying to capture. And
I
then a
just
little bit
wanted
about myself.
to quickly illustrate, because I mean, the scale I think is hard for people to understand without comparisons. Like, the 3.3 or so billion gamers globally, just for some perspective, uh, football fans globally are 3.5 billion, right? So it's
Wow.
almost as popular as football, which is the
Yeah.
most popular sport globally, and it's growing much, much, much faster. So I think that really puts things into perspective.
It does, and I think for our generation, it's certainly a little, yeah, again, daunting and exciting, but it means we really have to be on the pulse and kind of move with society, because the way we're consuming media, even, I don't know how many of the youth are actually reading books, right? I think they're like watching TikTok and consuming like a lot of, and maybe this is a reductive comment, but I think, but TikTok is massive, right? I think there are a
Yeah.
lot of these media outlets and forms of media consumption that are evolving. And actually, what's really cool for me personally as a game developer is that there are more and more game developers now. It's the barriers to entry have really reduced with platforms like Roblox and Unreal Engine Fortnite, which is now a lot of developers can actually build experiences within Fortnite
Yeah.
because it has its own game engine. And so now gamers are encouraged to actually develop games, which I think is awesome. And I think that's kind of a cool direction to be headed in, because it challenges people to think a little bit more critically about design, and that to me is exciting.
I think also another way to think about this is to look at what podcasting did to influence and media, where it opened it up for anybody to become a broadcaster. And if you look at the numbers of podcasting growth from its inception to today, it's astronomical. And
Yeah.
what gaming and being able to create games is going to do is not only allow all these people to create projects that they're passionate about, but if you think about the depth of experience of playing a game in comparison with listening to a podcast, and already how much influence a podcast has on
Yeah.
people's behavior, And then you add on VR and AR, which I'm sure we'll talk about later on to that. I mean, it's really, really exciting. I mean, there's going to be so many people able to create whatever they want, and these experiences are going to have much more impact than we've seen content have an impact before.
Yeah, absolutely. I think about that, and I was just discussing that with a friend yesterday about podcasts because I listen to podcasts, but I'm a DJ, so I tend to listen to music more than I do audiobooks or podcasts.
Mm.
But it's such a massive platform, and I'm in my little games bubble, and I think, wow, and I feel really immersed when I do listen to podcasts, and so just adding that component of things into, because that's like the storytelling piece, right? With all of the other elements that are composed in a video game. It's as you say, it's super exciting. Yeah, and then again, I think you've already kind of talked about some of my accolades, and but I think what's important here is just again the fact that I helped build this organization called Coven, which is an accelerator for underrepresented game developers, and that's helped shape a lot of the work that I'm doing now. I think things like mentorship and being able to provide economic and creative empowerment to people, especially for those from underrepresented backgrounds, is really crucial to moving the needle. And I've seen that, and it's been really cool to watch a lot of the alumni from those programs and how they've gone off. And I just want to keep building off of that through the studio as well.
And for any
Um,
of the investors listening, that is Karla being extremely modest. I can very much attest to you as an absolute powerhouse. So
I
yeah,
appreciate you.
that
Thank you. Well,
bio
it takes
definitely, yeah,
it
is
takes a village. No, and that's why I talk about mentorship, because I'm very grateful to many of my mentors and advisors, and I have had the honor of having some pretty heavy hitting, legends in the industry mentor me, and I always want to pay that back and pay that forward however I can. So yeah,
awesome.
no, thank you. That's a little bit about Anima. I can now show a little bit about the Just Play initiative and some of the games that came out of that, because I think that might be helpful for the audience to just get a sense of what does a social impact game look like? What does a justice game look like?
Hmm.
Okay, so let me just make sure you can see this.
Yep, all good.
Okay, cool. Okay, so yeah, so the Just Play initiative again was hosted by Cinereach and Anima Interactive, and the whole goal was to harness the power of interactive entertainment to engage new audiences around critical issues and ignite positive social change. So very much aligned with the mission of Anima. And then a little bit about Anima. I mentioned a little bit about Cinereach, and so it was just again kind of a natural alignment and partnership there for us. And Just Play, so it was basically again challenging creators to build narratives and gameplay experiences that explore different themes of justice in order to inspire new perspectives around the topic. And Cinereach actually did a lot of work in developing a toolkit for the developers. And so if you go to justplayjam.com, you can actually see all the resources there. They did some deep dives on existing games that explore different lenses of justice that you can play and that you can think about, oh, this is really interesting. It really explored this topic in this way. And so these were the different themes of justice that we explored. So pretty vast and a lot of like overlap and intersectionality here. But I think I hadn't personally really thought about justice through all of these different lenses. So it was cool to see how they kind of came together. Um, a little bit about our team. So we had experience in running similar initiatives. So I mentioned the Green Game Jam from UN Environment Program. So I'd been involved in helping organize that in the past. And I also, while at Code Coven, helped organize a game jam in partnership with UN Women that was focusing on harassment and toxicity against women and girls, right? And how to foster safer spaces. So the call to action for that game jam was around, okay, how can we explore creating safer spaces for women and girls around the world? And so that was really exciting for me. And I really want to be able to create more game jams, because I think what's really cool about game jams in particular and rapid prototyping is that it allows creators to explore ideas that might not be able to as easily be explored in traditional and more rigid studio structures and spaces. Sometimes larger studios want to be risk averse, so they don't want to tackle these bolder heavy hitting topics that might be a little bit controversial or polemical in ways, or political in ways, right? And I think for us, it's not about politicizing it. It's really just about fostering a greater awareness and empathy around the issues, and then letting the audience decide on their perspectives around it, right? We're just here to inform, and then leave it in the hands of the audience to decide what they want to
I think,
do, right?
it's very similar. I mean, it is art. And so,
Yeah,
to allow people to come to their own conclusions.
exactly. And then I mentioned again, we have tons of values aligned partners that were supporting us with the initiative. But this was pretty cool. So we ended up having a physical and virtual award ceremony at South by Southwest. We showcased at the Creative Industries Expo there. So this is like an image of our booth. But again, if you just go on the justplayjam.com website, and we have a YouTube channel as well, where you can watch a lot of recap videos. You can actually watch the full award ceremony. So that was really special. You can see all of the different projects too. Oops, sorry, hold on. I think this is playing, but hopefully you're not capturing my audio. Yeah, so that's again the recap. You can't hear the audio, but there's like, that's a little bit of the awards and the booth. So it was pretty cool. And just about the participants. So again, from all over the world, these are a little bit of a demographic breakdown. And this was a pilot event for us. So we were pretty pleased and grateful with the turnout as far as participants. And I think that really shown through the games. So here's a few games. So this one was called Pip Pepper Park Planner. It was very cute. It was kind of a cozy park building strategy game, but it wove all of these different themes of community justice and what it means to take care of the spaces around you, and how you kind of think about how different people in different neighborhoods might experience specific injustices based on environment and locale and physical geography, and this was exploring that, but wrapped in this very cute, cozy animal game. So again, like spinach and the brownies kind of thing. This one was a little bit of a heavier topic. So this was actually the tale of two sisters on a road trip crossing the Texas state lines because one sister needs to get an abortion. And so it was speaking about the abortion bans in Texas and reproductive rights, but in this really kind of elegant way and simple way of just getting this rich narrative, but while also weaving in and out of traffic. This one, In the Shadow of the Sun, was a simulator for what it's like to run a nonprofit organization and think about resource allocation. So that's a real, it's a real, every time I show people who work in the nonprofit spaces, they're like, oh yes, it resonates with them so much, because you have to deal with lots of challenges around, you have limited resources as a nonprofit organization. How do you make decisions on where to invest the resources that you have, right? And how do you pick your battles effectively, right? There's so much important work to be done as it relates to activism, and what do you do when you have these finite resources? So that was an interesting one. Drying Up Dust, which was focused on groundwater depletion in the American Dust Bowl. And that was really fascinating because so we actually flew out a lot of the winners and the finalists from all over the world to come to South by Southwest for the award ceremony. And one of the developers behind this project was based in Canada. And instead of flying, because this had an environmental focus, they decided to take a road trip. And with that road trip, they actually stopped in the area where this game is set and conducted additional research. So so this opportunity was able to like enable them to continue the important work of their research around this project. And I think it's just a great case study on how this extends beyond just making a game, right? We were really
Totally.
focused on building off of this and starting a movement beyond just the art form. Are You Listening was a game about, again, simulating the experience of what it's like to be a doctor and having to be inundated on a daily basis and, thinking about just managing the complexities and of different patients. And I think this is, again, like just it's a good testament on the public health system. So that the developer of this game was actually in the UK. So, you think about like the National
Hmm.
Health Service, you and I know that. And it's really interesting to think about the nuances in different healthcare systems and healthcare justice. So that was an interesting project as well. And then this one was from a team in Lebanon, Umal Zaitoun. And it was really just a gentle and sensitive exploration of Palestinian culture, talking a little bit about history and tradition. Again, just trying to kind of raise awareness about Palestine. And so not like a combative political thing, but just saying like, hey, this is in case you didn't know, right? This is how you can learn about it. And so yeah, overall there were some really cool projects, and hopefully that gives you a little taste of the possibilities.
Absolutely. I have so many things to say. So, I mean, first of all, um, I'll point to a client of mine, ex photojournalist, now turned humanitarian photojournalist,
Oh, cool.
that worked with Israeli and Palestinian women and brought them together in these photo workshops where they would each get cameras, they would be taught photography, and some of it is like a
Wow.
multiple day thing. Some of the assignments were to go back home and take photos of their lives, and then to show those photos back in these
Mm,
workshops. And she wrote a book that I helped publish actually called Through the Lens of Humanity, where
lovely.
it it tells the story of how sharing that story with each other and sharing each other's humanity is actually what not only educated each side about what was actually going on at home and what they were feeling or just showing family life, but also um, just showing that we are all human beings. We all have a son, daughter, uncle, parent, XYZ, right? That we care about. And so, I just want to highlight that because it's very easily turned into this political, logical um, argument about the numbers of either deaths on this side or murders or attacks or all of those horrific things. And yet, when humans can connect and share that humanity, right? Put ourselves in the same group rather than this group versus that group, real change can happen and has happened. And so I don't want to I don't want us to forget that. And on a much lighter note, the first game that you mentioned about taking care of the community is in Japan, in schools early on, the kids are each given little roles in the classroom to
Yeah,
help like
that's
organize or
great.
clean or whatever. And so
Yeah,
they're really taught very early on what it means
the
to contribute
value
to
of
community.
community and
Exactly.
shared ownership. Yeah,
Yeah. And Japan is the safest country in the world by far.
yeah.
So that tells us a lot. Okay, anyway.
No, I
Uh,
love that. Thank you. I'm learning. This is great. Appreciate it.
So, Karla, we have a lot of questions for you coming in, but I want to
Oh,
just quickly wrap up for you. What would you say are your top three lessons that you want entrepreneurs, impact investors, researchers, policymakers, and activists, especially in gaming, to keep in mind moving forward?
oh gosh. And that's so nuanced because I would say that they're kind of different for everyone. But if I'm to think of broad strokes, let's see. Well, yes, you mentioned the power of collaboration, and I think that that's something that I didn't address as much. I did a little bit, obviously. I talked about our partnerships, but truly, it starts with a conversation. It starts with listening and understanding the issues. It starts with forming, natural alignment and setting goals together because there is power in numbers. It takes a village. Like I think it's really exciting to have cross-sector collaborations because, again, with the power of diversity, diverse perspectives, we're all in our little rabbit holes. But when we all come together, and again, this is kind of a kumbaya, but truthfully, I believe in it because I've experienced it, and it feels so exciting and galvanizing when we're in those rooms and in those spaces dreaming and scheming, but then also actually taking action once we've crafted those goals and shared visions. And so I would really encourage you to reach out, right? Be fearless, even if you don't know the space. I mean, how do you get to know the space? You have to find the right partners. I'm very happy at Anima to take, very open to conversations with people across different sectors. And I know many individuals in the games industry that also are, and I think that's exciting. So that's one lesson, I suppose, which is more of a call to action as opposed to a lesson. But I'm still learning, so I don't know that I have all of the, I don't think I have all of the expertise necessarily to share that. But I would say that, and then beyond that too, I think we talked a little bit about impact measurement, and I think being able to have data driven actionable insights, right, from the work that you do. So we're still early right now. Our studio is only a year old, and we're still formulating a lot of our frameworks for impact measurement. But I think this is where the academics, the researchers, the policymakers can support people in the entertainment industry, because artists will focus on creating art and they're not always necessarily thinking about impact because that's not their space. I mean, it can be, but often artists can be more, like ego driven or creator driven, and less focused on kind of the societal impact. I mean, they want to make a societal impact, but maybe in a less academic sense, right? And I think there's power in being able to share with artists frameworks and models for impact measurement, because I think it could be exciting, right? There's so much beauty in that as well, I think, right? When you see the numbers and when you see the ways that it can drive change. But again, because the numbers are actually tied to humans, right? Like it's not like and that's another piece though too, right? Is that we don't want to be reductive, and we don't. One of the important things that I've learned through this experience is that often a lot of social justice issues, not just social, but a lot of issues in the world are reduced to data. A lot of mainstream media will just, as you were talking about it before with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, is you hear the aggregates and you so rarely hear the human stories. And so it's really important to try to do the homework of investigating the humanity behind things, because there's so much. And it's all nuanced and it's all worth sharing with the world, right? And that's what takes a lot of work, right? It does. It's grassroots stuff, right? It's investigative journalism, right? It goes beyond that. It's that kind of stuff, and that is something that I would encourage people to explore as well. Um, Gosh, I don't know. And then the last lesson is really try to be on the pulse of technological development. I know it's challenging, but it's inevitable. It's here. We are in the future. And if you are not caught up, I don't know, you will get left behind. So definitely keep tinkering, keep exploring. If you don't feel like you have the resources to do it, then find the right people to partner with who do, right? And that's how you kind of get the insight and the knowledge and expertise.
Beautiful.
Hopefully
And
those are the
that's why
takeaways.
we're here, right? We're
Yeah.
trying to keep you all informed, so nobody gets left behind. All right, so diving into some questions, you've actually answered some of the questions that came in, so that's beautiful. Okay, Beyond awareness, can you share specific examples of how your games have driven measurable behavioral change or real-world impact?
Yeah, so I can share an example. I didn't directly work on this particular initiative, but I was at Niantic, who make Pokemon Go, and something that they did, which was really fascinating and very unique to the type of games that Niantic makes, because they actually, one of their KPIs is actually like real world social impact, since they have the opportunity to drive real world meetups and community. A lot of games, online games do, but Niantic is especially so because it's inherent to the game experience itself, right? Like the game encourages you to go outside and build community effectively. And so what they did was, on Earth Day, they ran kind of a beach cleanup where they specifically spawned more water Pokemon around the oceans, right, around the water. And that drove people to the
Interesting.
beaches. And then they had specific, volunteer groups there driving beach cleanups, which I thought was really cool and a super powerful way of driving tangible impact through a game feature. Right?
Yeah, I think also that just, spurs a lot of ideas for games that use geolocation to drive traffic to a certain place, right? I mean,
Yes.
that's definitely a lot of very interesting applications there. Okay, what's your process for choosing social issues to address through your games, and how do you ensure they will resonate?
Yeah, it's a good question. So initially, I recently was chatting with a filmmaker friend who was saying, write what you know, right? Like,
Mm,
so start maybe where your heart is. Because when you think about like picking battles, it's a combination of things, right? Like I personally think about, well, what are the biggest issues, right? As far as, we talked about the importance of data before, and you can kind of see like as an example, when the UN Environment Program talks about sustainable development goals and the vast issues that are being addressed through them, they say that everything starts with climate, because if we don't have a safe earth, then we can't address the rest of the inequalities that exist in the world. And so that's why a lot of people are focused on climate right now. I think for myself, I mentioned I'm a daughter of immigrants. I think, and I've been an immigrant myself. Immigration is something that I think about often, and the injustices around immigration rights. So that's a topic that we're exploring as well. Usually it's a combination, I would say, of reaching out to people, understanding, and when I say people, I mean like maybe people in the activist space, so in the impact space, and understanding what are the biggest issues du jour, right? Like today, like what's keeping you up at night, and how can we help? How can we support that? So right now, for example, in the US, we're about to hit an election. What are the most important topics that are driving this election? And what can we address potentially? And so that's something that we think about. Yeah, hopefully that answers that.
You know, something that you mentioned with AOC and playing Among Us to bring attention for people to get involved and vote. I think another really interesting thing to think about is how in an election, when these controversial issues are being talked about, and a lot of the time, there's a lot of the populace that isn't educated about that particular issue because they're busy and they have other things to worry about. But if you were to integrate that into their entertainment, then we have a very interesting way of educating people, right? Where, and this is something that we talked about in a previous masterclass with Alexandros Marcassini, where in the past, the US had civics as part of its education system,
Hmm.
right? As part of the core curriculum, and that's no longer there. And so we do
Yeah.
need something else that will replace that if we want an educated citizenry that can make informed decisions about how they want to be governed. So this question kind of meshes all of that together. How do you balance the entertainment value of a game with its educational or social message to ensure it reaches a broad audience?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think something that we're still testing and trying to understand. So I mean, in game development, play testing is so critical, user research is so critical, and eliciting that feedback. And as part of our process, we really want to be able to do that. And sometimes you might need to tailor and adapt things. So as an example, Ubisoft, they have Assassin's Creed, which is, a very big game, very big franchise. They actually created an adapted version for education for schools. It's called Assassin's Creed Discovery Tour. And that's one way too, right? So you can have the IP and the franchise that's more for the entertainment value, and then you can create adapted versions that are slightly more nuanced to tailor to the more pedagogical approaches. So I would say, there are different ways of approaching it, and it really is on a case by case basis, depending on what your goals are and what the audience is that what your target audience is. But I think that's been an interesting case study.
Awesome. And actually, something I forgot to mention earlier, which I think ties in here as well, is the cross-disciplinary collaboration between the gamers, right? The artists, the engineers, the product managers, the activists, the entrepreneurs, and the investors, right? It's not, no one person has to be good at all of those things. That's the point, right? Each person can bring their specialty and collaborate to bring that to life. And so there's so many opportunities for all these people that really haven't interacted traditionally, those industries. And now that's completely viable. And so it can spur a lot of really interesting convergences.
Absolutely.
So one other question that is very relevant for investors and entrepreneurs here. In your experience, what are the biggest challenges in securing funding or support for games focused on social impact, and how have you overcome them?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say that people might be averse to this notion of social impact because they think it's like, oh, you might be associated with a nonprofit. It might be associated with education in a more traditional sense as opposed to entertainment, right? And then, or if you're addressing a specific heavy hitting topic or issue, investors might tend to be more risk averse, and they'll say, oh no, this is something that can have bad PR because it has a political or controversial lens to it. Contrarily or contrastly, like some investors might actually lean into that because they say, oh, this is provocative. It actually might reach a wider audience. And so it, it really depends on the investors. But I would say in overcoming that, you saw some of the data, right? The data kind of speaks for itself, and that increasingly players care about this. Thankfully, the younger generations are also very attuned to the world's issues because they are growing up in a world that is on fire. I mean, right? And I think that's something important too. And then, of course, I talk about the global majority, which is such a wide market. There's so much opportunity. So I I think it's hopefully an easier sell for investors, um and if they are averse to it, I think they will soon realize that that might not be the right perspective to have because it's all evolving and taking shape now. So
Hmm. And actually on that, what are the biggest barriers to scaling games for wider social impact, and how can these be overcome?
Yes. Well, making games is very hard. It's an old adage. Yeah, I would say that's probably the biggest challenge right now is like the actual resources required to make a game that scales to that extent. But the exciting thing is that, for example, mobile games, right? Mobile games are actually the most lucrative. They have the widest reach because, there are 6 billion people with smartphones globally. And so I think that that's a huge opportunity for people to start developing on mobile, and it can be more cost effective. It's generally cheaper to develop mobile games than bigger AAA console experiences or XR experiences. So that's not actually a barrier. So it's actually an opportunity, but the barrier primarily is, yeah, the generally resources required. I think also it depends on the audience again, the demographics that you want to reach. If you don't have the right marketing strategy, go to market strategy, that's obviously going to going to affect you, but that's why I would encourage people to go through some of those advocacy groups to understand. But it's also, if you're tackling a social impact topic, you don't just want to preach to the converted, right? You're also, and you might not also reach people on the other end of the spectrum. Our hypothesis is that there's a large portion of the population that would be interested in these issues and simply isn't informed. And so we can provide them with the resources, to like shed light on some of this, and that can, so there's a wide audience that we can capture there. But yeah, actually bringing that to scale, it's again, I'd say there's power in collaboration, and the grassroots thing has been effective for us at least, and yeah, could be for others as well.
So on the AR/VR, what role do you see emerging technologies like VR or AR playing in the future of games for social impact?
Yeah, they're already doing a lot in this space, specifically as it relates to health and wellness. I would say do some research on some of the VR experiences there are FDA approved virtual reality experiences that support
Mm.
mental health now and wellness, because you get this biofeedback, and there's a lot of deep research there that I'm personally super excited to explore as well. So there's that piece, but then there's just the general notion of virtual reality being like, again, one of the most immersive forms, and being able to foster empathy. There are a lot of art installations now. One, big inspiration for me that was a VR experience was Alejandro Iñárritu, who's this Mexican filmmaker, in 2017 um, debuted at the Cannes Film Festival of a VR experience called Carne y Arena, and it was basically simulating the experience of migrants crossing the border, the US-Mexico border. And it was a very visceral experience. They basically would put you in a VR headset, make you go barefoot on this space that was covered in sand so that it was a multi-sensory experience. They
Mm.
had all this sonaural effects of helicopters, and so you could actually feel what it would be like to be there. So that's very powerful. It's not super scalable, but I think that there might be, with VR becoming more accessible now with headsets, I don't know what's happening with Apple Vision Pro and where that's going to go, but I certainly think that inevitably it will become more accessible. So there's a lot of opportunity to explore these kind of multi-sensory experiences and simulations too.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of time, and we can see the Ready Player One scenario coming closer and closer.
Yeah.
Quick note actually is we partnered with a company called Anima Interactive with my other company, Smart Course, for people struggling with mental health and ADHD and special needs. And they created a game that's actually FDA approved for the treatment of ADHD. And
Oh,
that in itself is
wow.
a huge accomplishment, right?
Yeah.
So we can see, yeah, these games are coming in not just for um, an emotional or logical impact to action, but actual treatment
Yeah.
for things, which is amazing. Okay, so on that note, can you elaborate on the successful partnerships between gaming companies and NGOs or corporations, highlighting the roles and benefits for each party, and maybe also, who you've partnered with for people to understand how that comes into play and why that's important?
Yeah. So I talked about it a little bit already. I talked about the UN partnership with the games industry, and that's been super powerful because there's been a reciprocal kind of education between both or among all parties involved, where the UN is sharing its insights into, because they're, on the pulse of the issues, right? And they have all of the research and the data, and they know what audiences need to learn about, and then there are academics as part of that, as well, psychologists, behavioral psychologists, who can understand, like, from a game design standpoint, what are the actual mechanics that can trigger behavioral change. And then there are the creators, the artists, the game designers, right? And they're the ones actually developing and implementing those designs. And so it really just creates this constellation of where, as you were saying earlier, everybody's bringing their unique expertise to the table, and that creates the end product. For us personally, at Anima, I mentioned our partnership with Cinereach, who are a nonprofit, and they have this expertise in the film space. So they're really experts in narrative, and they've been really insightful to us as game designers. Like, of course, game developers, they're also narrative designers and writers, but the work that they've done. I also mentioned the National Domestic Workers Alliance, who ran the impact campaign with Roma. They've been advising us as well, and they know because they've done it. And so I think but they also don't know that much about games, but are excited about exploring games because it has this vast potential. And so we're able to kind of share knowledge and insights with each other. And that's kind of the starting point.
Amazing. So I know we're short on time here. There are quite a few questions left, so we're going to prioritize a couple of these and then wrap up. What should I do as a game developer that wants to create games with a social purpose but don't know where to start?
Yeah, it's I'm happy to share resources as a follow-up. I would say the first place to go is probably Games for Change. It's a festival and a website. You can check their website. They curate tons of projects and studios that are focused on impact-driven games. So get inspiration first, and then you can find potential collaborators. Honestly, you can reach out to us. I'm happy to, I think I shared my email address, always happy to chat and kind of point in the right direction, or if we can, identify potential collaboration opportunities. That's part of why I'm here evangelizing the work that we're doing, because as I've said again and again, and I'll reiterate, there's power in numbers. It takes a village. Everybody has something unique to bring. Everybody has a diverse perspective. So I would say those are probably two good places to start. And then finding game jams as well. If there's a really low barrier to entry for game jams. Itch.io is a website that you can see a long list of game jams that are running, and you don't actually have to be a programmer or an artist. You can literally just contribute to some like broader design things or writing, or if you don't have the technical game development skills. And so that's a great way to just get your feet wet into starting with game development as well.
Awesome. Okay, and is there a specific call to action that you have for our audience in terms of supporting or engaging with games for social good?
Yeah, I think playing the games, sharing feedback is so important, because that's how game developers can continue to iterate and improve and reach audiences. I think like that's something that we'll be doing. We'll soon start having beta testing, and would love anybody in the audience to participate and share feedback, because that's really critical. I think what's really cool about games as a medium in particular is, like, unlike film and TV, where it's a finite experience, it goes out into the world, and then you can't really make changes. Maybe with TV, the next season you can bring something up, but with games now, as they're online often, and they're like, live service often, you can release an update to a game. And I think something powerful, as an example, so Animal Crossing, right? The Nintendo game during the pandemic, I remember, with the rise of the BLM movement, and there were a lot of players that were complaining about the lack of hair and skin tone customization options in Animal Crossing. And immediately Nintendo listened to their community. They made a patch and update, and then there were more options. And that's what's really special about games as a form, is that they can listen to their community and make changes and implement and iterate. And yeah, I would say definitely just keep sharing that feedback, and that's how we make it better for everybody.
I love it. It's a giant collaborative project for everyone. Carla,
Yeah,
thank you so much for taking part in this interview. You shared so much value for our audience. Where can people get in touch with you or follow your work?
thank you so much. Yes, LinkedIn. I don't know if you post my LinkedIn profile. I think I shared my email. It's Karla at anima-interactive.com. Twitter, I'm at K Reyes 121. Any of those platforms, I'm available, and always DMs are open.
Awesome. All right. Thanks again for
Thank
all
you
of our
so much.
listeners. Be sure to follow up with Karla Reyes. Also, don't forget to download the action guide that we've prepared for you to help you implement the things that we talked about with Karla Reyes today. We spent months vetting these speakers because we knew they'd be really valuable to you. So definitely check them out and follow what they're up to. If you like this content, please smash that like button, share this episode, comment, sign up for our newsletter, and share our episodes with your friends and your favorite speakers so we can have them on. Tag us on your shared posts to get exclusive perks like our member community, deals on merch, and early access to surprises. I promise we'll make it all worth it for you. Karla, thank you so much for taking
Thank
the
you
time.
so much. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thanks, everyone. Take
All the
care.
best. Have a good one.
Bye. Thanks. You
Bye-bye.
too.